And we had a relative that came and spent the night, and he was young. It wasn't an adult. He was young, and he was sleeping on the floor in the bedroom. And he had me come down off the bed and touch him down there in his private area. And my mom walks in and she stops what's happening. And so he doesn't touch me, but he had me touch him, which is kind of like I knew it wasn't right. It didn't feel right. And so it's kind of like, thank you, God, that my mom walks in and she saves me. But it wouldn't be till I'm 46 years old now, and it wouldn't be here to real recently that I finally got the courage to even tell someone that it happened to me, and then go to my mom about the memory I have to confirm that it happened. Welcome to Becoming with Angelina Watkins, where we are turning dreamers into believers and doers through open and transparent stories and lives of those who have overcome adversity to walk in their purpose, achieve a level of success, and live life on their terms. Candid conversations with men and women from all walks of life, giving us a fresh perspective and the blueprint on how to win at love, life, and money. So in this episode, we're going to start with me. And I want to just say before I get started that our past turns us into someone we were not meant to be. We turn into someone that God did not create us to be. What has happened to us, things that are said to us, things that we see, things that are done, it creates someone that was never supposed to exist. And so for me, I've had a past filled with a lot of pain, a lot of drama, and it turned me into someone who was angry, someone who was resentful and bitter. It turned me into someone who was insecure, a perfectionist, a control freak. Ultimately, it turned me into someone who had a problem with authority, someone who had a problem with someone controlling them and telling them what to do. And these things would cause me problems in my future relationships, whether it was between me and a man or at work or even in family. And what we don't realize is that the things that happen to us that turn us into someone that we're not supposed to be, it ends up impacting our relationships or us being able to relate to others. I was guarded. I was fearful. I was nasty. I can get with you. And it's all a defense mechanism. It's all a wall that we put up to protect ourselves. And why do we need to protect ourselves? Because some things have happened to us that has left us vulnerable, left us scared, and we just now have to protect ourselves from those things. And so my story starts with me very, very young. I can remember back as old as 4 is where my story begins with molestation. And so child abuse, child sexual abuse is one of those things that we don't talk about enough. It's so many young girls and boys that are being sexually abused and by family members, and we sweep things under the rug and we don't talk about those things, and we act as if those things don't happen. And that's where my story begins. And I can remember when I was 4 years old, and some of you might say, 4? What do you remember at 4? Let me tell you all. You can remember the bad things that happened to you. 4 years old, you have a memory. You know what's going on. If you think these children that are 4, 5, and 6 years old aren't going to remember what happened to them when they're older, if you think what you do to them is not going to change who they are, you're sadly mistaken. For me, I remember living in Minneapolis, Minnesota, living on Oliver. And we had a relative that came and spent the night, and he was young. It wasn't an adult. He was young, and he was sleeping on the floor in the bedroom. And he had me come down off the bed and touch him down there in his private area. And my mom walks in and she stops what's happening. And so he doesn't touch me, but he had me touch him, which is kind of like I knew it wasn't right. It didn't feel right. And so it's kind of like, Thank you, God, that my mom walks in and she saves me. But it wouldn't be till I'm 46 years old now, and it wouldn't be here to real recently that I finally got the courage to even tell someone that it happened to me, and then go to my mom about the memory I have to confirm that it happened. And which she did. She was able to tell me yes. She didn't think anything had happened. I said, well, something did happen. He had me touch him. And so I wanted to know what happened, because this was someone I still had to see. This was someone I still had to be around. This was someone that I would still see at family functions. I would see at church. And so what happened? And so what happened was that my father had a talk with him about what he did and why that was wrong. And so it kind of just was like we went on with life as normal, as if nothing happened. Um, and and then it would be maybe when I was about 5, I went over to a friend's house that we went to church with, and her older sister. And I don't know if they were babysitting me or if I just was over there for the friend. I just know I was about 5 years old, because now I'm living on Sheridan. And see, I remember where I lived. Okay, I have a memory. Went over there, and I remember the older sister calling me into the bathroom. And so she calls me into this bathroom and she has me touch her down there in the private area. And for me, I was grossed out. That was my first exposure to the fact that we get hair down there. I don't know anything about that. I should have never been exposed to that. I was disgusted. Okay. Um, I remember telling my mom, but my mom doesn't remember that incident. And but I remember the incident. I remember it happening. And so again, I wasn't touched, but to have me touch you, I think that started my whole being controlled issue. Because this would continue on in some in as I get and go through my story. But this impacted me in different ways, because to this day, um, I get so angry and I get so upset, and sometimes I just want to cry when I hear about children being abused, and when I hear about women being sexually abused by family members, when I hear about people being abused and nothing's done to the abuser. The police are not called. There's no therapy happening. We don't get no help for the victim. And we just go on with life as if it's normal, and nothing's done to help them with their mental, emotional. That bothers me. It upsets me. And and I know it all stems from it happening to me. Um, this incident, is something that we have to start talking about. It's something that we can't keep sweeping under the rug. It's something that we have to start doing. We can't keep letting these things happen to our young girls and boys. Now, for me, I'm thankful that I had a mother who saved me, right? But that wasn't the only incident. There was still the whole thing of as I'm growing up, I remember another male cousin, we're playing house, and he whips out his stuff and he wants to put them in my panties. And I, just the dry humping and things of that nature. We it impacts you. And as I'm growing up and I'm realizing, as I'm dealing with this, as I start to unpack and I start to unheal and I'm going on my healing journey, that this may not have, I thought it didn't impact me mentally or emotionally, but it did. Because when I look back on my life and I look back on how I react to some things, how I react when, males are approaching me or they want to come towards me, I didn't like it. Especially if you were too forward, if you were too touchy. I had males want to touch me on my butt, pat me on my butt, smack me on my butt, want to touch my breast. They just want to touch me. And it was very uncomfortable. And the more this happens, the more I become guarded, the more I kind of, shrink. And I'm fearful of even being in a relationship where now I'm going to have to be, they want to be intimate. And I just wasn't ready for that. right? And so we go through things that one thing happens and then another thing happens and then another thing happens, and it all starts to build up and it piles up. And all that I told you that about being angry and about not wanting to be controlled and about, being guarded, all of this is stemming. It starts with with me being molested and trying to break free. And in my story, as I continue, you're going to hear me talk about just wanting to break free and just wanting to be me and not be who everybody else wants me to be. And I spend all of these years, 40, I would say. I started my healing journey several times, but I started my healing journey like intentionally when I was maybe about 44. Okay, so I spent 44 years of my life fighting to be me, fighting to really be who God created me to be. And so it all just starts. And I just have to say in this podcast, it's impacted me with raising my children. My daughter wants, she socializes. She wants to get out. She wants to go places. And I don't always want her to go places. And I'm didn't want her to let her spend a night over people's house. And do they have a son? She wants to go spend a night over a friend's house. Do they have a brother? How old is that brother? You know, I'm asking these questions about the father. Is the father in the home? Like I'm fearful of sending my child to her friend's house and then something happens to her and then I'm not there to protect her like my mother was there to protect me. Um, and we have tug of war with this because she wants me to loosen the reins, but I'm protective and I've been trying to let go and I've been given the little freedom, but I worry. I do when she goes somewhere, even if it's not spending the night. It doesn't mean something can happen. And so when she's out and she's gone and I'm not there to protect her, I worry because I know how vulnerable our young ladies are and our young girls. And I just never want her to have to experience what I've had to experience and what other many women have had to experience as well. And so I'm really, really guarded and I'm really, really protective. And so now when I'm dealing with my clients, and I have clients who have been sexually abused, and I hurt for them, but I have to be the strong one because I'm the coach. But I feel the pain, I understand, and in some instances, I just want to go fight for them. I just want to go protect them. I want to go take up for them because I'm just upset that they even had to go through this and that they've even had to endure this and that they've had a hard time getting over it. Why? Because we have parents. The parents, let me tell you, you have to get your children some mental and emotional help when things happen to them. And if you're an adult and you didn't get the help, I would encourage you. I would encourage you to go get the help and the therapy that you need to overcome this, because you don't have to live with it. You don't have to keep letting that be a dark cloud over your head. You don't have to keep letting that be one of the things that has you stuck. And you don't have to keep letting that be one of the things that have you living in fear. And so that's something that as I continue to let go, allow my daughter to grow up, I'm releasing that fear and the worry off of me. Now I'm still going to be a parent. I'm still going to want to make sure that she's okay. But I know that I letting go and loosening the reins is helping me heal as well. And so that's something that I've had to do. But many of us out there, you have to recognize what being sexually abused can do to you, what it can do to your mind, how it can have you feeling insecure, how it can have you feeling unworthy. I've dealt with insecurities growing up, and not wanting people to see my body. I remember there was a time I'm wearing clothes that are just a little bit too big for me because I don't want men to look at me in that way. I want them to like me, but I don't want them to see me as a sex object and think that they can just touch me on my butt like they were and hug all on me and touch me. And no, you cannot do that. And so we've got to get out of this idea of it's okay, I'll just deal with it. I'll just brush it off my shoulders, and keep it moving. And you can't. You've got to address it. You've got to deal with it. You've got to deal with the hurt. You've got to deal with the pain that sexual abuse causes you. Okay? So I'm telling you, that's my story of being molested. In the coming podcast, I will continue to tell you all my story. When I tell you I've been through some things, I have been through some things. Okay? And they, again, made me angry, bitter, resentful, perfectionist, control freak, a person who has a problem with authority, a person who has a problem with someone telling them what to do, a person who was a nicey. I can be really nicey. And if you think that didn't come from being molested and having someone force you to touch them, hell yeah, I'm mad. I'm mad. Okay? And that's something that as life goes on and things continue to happen, I just get more and more mad and more upset. And what's done? What's done? I'm just now in the last few years unpacking some things. And then now I'm helping my clients unpack some things. All right? And so get the healing that you need. Don't keep sweeping these things under the rug. Parents, don't, if this has happened to your child, I'm telling you, you've got to get them some mental and emotional therapy and help, because if you don't, it's going to impact their future. It's going to impact them on their job. It's going to impact them in their marriage. This is impacting me in my marriage. So I've had to start unbecoming some things, because all of these things that my past caused me to be, I have to now unbe those things. I have to unbecome those things, because it is showing up and impacting my marriage as well. And so I say to you, heal. All right? Heal. Until next time, just remember that where you are is not where you have to be. Your past doesn't define you. You define you. So I want you to heal, transform, and pursue you. If this story is something that you could relate to, you can resonate with, because this has happened to you, then I encourage you to tell your story, because releasing is healing. When you let it go, you begin to heal so that you can become a better version of yourself and live a fulfilled life. So I invite you to share your story with me. Email me at angelina@becomingtobeing.com, and that's with a 2, becoming number 2, being.com. And you could be featured on a future podcast of Becoming with Angelina Watkins.